Hitman 2-3, this is Hitman 2-2, over.
Hitman 2-2, you're coming in weak and unreadable. Try cleaning your handset. Try again.
Hitman 2-3, this is Hitman 2-2, how you read me now?
2-3 has you loud and clear. Out.
Hitman 2-3, this is Hitman 2-2, over.
Roger, I got your
ready to top full. Please fill me in on your situation. Alright. Calm down, buddy. We're gonna be down here. We're not gonna calm down, pop your smoke. Don't hit the second switch coming down. And if nobody can do it, these guys can do it. So just relax and be cool, okay? Alright, now I was just yelling because I couldn't too much ordnance going on.
George, how'd you find yesterday?
It was okay. It's not bad. Yeah, what meant the interview? Yeah, it was okay.
Was it, when you say okay, did you feel like you would have liked more time?
I guess what I think we could have done is given me some more props to talk about things, and I'm not sure what you wanted me to talk about, if you know what I mean, because I keep going back to the funny things like the goat and the dog and the monkey and things like that. If that's what you're looking for, that was good, but when it came to any other serious part of the interview, I don't know whether I should have been saying other things or not. You know, like compared to what Pedro might have said and the other boys, I don't think I said very much at all.
So give me an idea of what you feel. You know, like I'm sure that last night you probably thought, oh God, I wish I had a chance to say this. What is it that you didn't get to kind of say?
Well, I don't know, to be truthful, because I don't know what you were looking for. So whatever Jared was aiming for, I don't know whether I covered what the topics he wanted me to talk about, if you know what I'm saying. I followed your prompts and I went on, and like I normally do, rabbit on about things, and I was more talking about silly things, I felt, rather than anything real serious. But then again, talking to Pedro and them for, you know, the late hours of the night, washed down by gallons of red wine, only then do some of the things come up, and I still don't even remember half the things. Whether I have blocked them out of my mind, or whether I just don't remember them, or whether I don't want to remember them, I don't know. And it's only when Pedro, that's why I wanted Pedro here, because he's a walking history. And he has got such a great recall of what went on. I don't remember half the things we talked about.
And what do you think were some of those things that you weren't sure you didn't remember or didn't want to? Like what were some of those conversations you had last night?
Well, things like different contacts that we were in and battles that we went into. I don't recall most of them. And I was there, obviously, because I was driving the bloody tank, you know, and doing my job. But Pedro had a deeper insight into all the things that are going on. Again, I've got to say, I'm sitting down there on the front, a 19-year-old boy, mind in neutral, doing exactly what I have to do, and not thinking of the greater picture, where Pedro's at the top, organising the battle and doing things with the other crew commanders. I'm just following instructions at the bottom. Go left, go right, go over that tree over there, go over here, and there's bullets flying around, things happening, and that's fine, and I'm just doing what I have to do, is to keep the tank safe and don't bog it and don't blow it up, and keep get around the corner. Just keep it as steady as possible so they could do the firing and the shooting. And to me, my mind was just in neutral, just doing what I had to do.
Yeah, it seems to be no surprise that you wouldn't remember in the same way that...
Exactly, yeah. Whereas Mick would be in there, he'd be firing the gun, looking at the sights and doing things. Gary's over here loading machine guns, doing things, working on telephones. I'm keeping the tank steady. We're working as a team, and not Pedro, but my crew commander at the time would be doing what he needs to do and fighting the battle and talking to the troop leader and talking to the other tanks. And they're saying, you know, like there's a contact over the hill over there. Well, George, get yourself over there and be as careful as you can when you get there. And then they're on the radio. So we're all trusting each other to do each other's jobs. So I've got to get over that hill. So I get over there the best way I can. I assess the ground. I look where we're going, make sure there's no big dongas or hills. I can see live firing over there, so I've got to be careful. Do I put my hatches down and drive? I prefer not to, because I don't have good vision when I'm locked down. When I'm sitting up, even with my head out, I can see a lot better and I can control things in my little part of the world to keep the vehicle going and to get where it's got to go. So
yeah, they really depended on you just to focus on your job, because it was so.
And I'm hoping like hell that, you know, Gary and Mick are doing their job.
Yeah,
because they've got to fire the bullets. You know, and I've got to get the vehicle there. So when we sit around talking, you know, Pedro comes up and says, "You remember this?" I said, "No, I don't remember that." You know, or I might say, "Well, I remember the time we were in the long highs and the helicopters flying up the top of us and all the hot shells were falling on me." That's the part that I remember, and about the blokes with the mortar plate running between us and having infantry on either side of me. But that was my world down there.
Yeah.
They're up the top doing things. But then as we get talking, they said, "Well, we went this, we did that, we did this." Oh yeah, I remember that now. But my memory of that particular incident was just sitting in that tank with all these hot shells falling over me and driving into a contact and trying to do my job.
George, so with those hot shells falling all over you, like, did you even have time to be scared? Because you were so focused on your job.
Yeah, you've got to do what you've got to do. Because you spent so long training. The idea of the military is that they get you in, reprogram you, and you react to orders. And by doing that, it starts right at Kapooka, where you spend hours on the drill parade, listening to orders and reacting to orders. Turn left, right here, right there, left form, right, left, stand at east, attention. And you think to yourself, what a load of shit all this is, right? But they're programming you to react to orders. And same as when you then do your other training on tank driving and everything else, and your gunnery training, you're reacting to orders, you're reacting to orders, you've been programmed, so it's not mine to reason why, but mine to do and die.
Yes.
I know that sounds a bit over the top, but
no,
that's kind of how it works. So when they say jump over the hill, you jump over the hill. Especially when you're young. So you've had all this training for about 1.5 years before you go there. So when something happens, it happens. I guess you're scared, but I don't know, you haven't got time to think about being scared.
But there must have been times, George. I mean, you and I have had lots of chats, and you've told me all the fun stories, and you know. But and I think you've said to me before that you just haven't spoken about some things.
No, I haven't spoken about things for years.
Yeah, and I kind of wondered, well, okay, sometimes you didn't have time to be scared, but there must have been moments when you really had a bit of self-doubt, or I mean, I don't know, what were those lows? Because if I had had time, and you know, I wish I had had a lot more time with you, George, yet in yesterday's interview, but I would have loved to have tried to delve into some of those kind of lower moments for you.
I know, but I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, okay, and I think that was...
I mean that nicely. I'll give you another example. When I go to this men's table, we sit around and talk, right? And there's 12 men at the table, and you don't interrupt anybody, so one person takes a turn to talk about what's happened in the last month. It could be anything from a marriage breakup to a great day out playing golf or whatever. And you go around the room and you just talk. You don't offer opinions, you don't ask questions unless you ask someone for some advice. So even at that situation, I still will not open up to some of the men in that room, because I don't want people to see me being vulnerable. And that's the truth about it all. I'm happy to talk to these guys, and I go to these meetings, I'm always very positive, and that's the way I am. So I tend to just shut things at the back of the head and just keep moving forward, and that's how I work. So with all this Vietnam stuff, you know, I don't know whether I've just automatically shut it all out, or whether I stick as two short planks and I didn't really understand what was happening. But when you talk about low periods, to me, one of the scariest times, not going into battles, was to sit on the top of that turret in the middle of the night by myself on guard duty, or picket duty as we called it, for your 30-40 minutes while your mates are sleeping around you, and you've got just your eyeballs over the top of the turret where the crew commander was set, and you'd be on picket. So you knew quite well you couldn't go to sleep, and every noise in the jungle sounded like 10,000 men coming to get you, you know, but it wasn't. It was just the noise of the jungle, you know, monkeys moving around and whatever it might be, wild pigs and things. To me, that was probably the most frightening time.
Oh, I can imagine. I'd have been frightened too.
Just sitting there by yourself, and people are relying on you to make sure you stay awake and do your thing.
Yeah.
So to actually go into contact, I guess would you be scared? I don't know whether scared's the word for it. Your adrenaline's running and you're...
Hyper-vigilant.
That's a good word, that's what I'm trying to think. Yes, that's what you like. So you know you've got to do things, and you think, shit, I hope nothing happens to me, but you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about doing what you have to do.
So I'm really interested, you know, George, in, you know, what you said about vulnerability, because, you know, you must come into contact with a lot of men who show their vulnerability.
Yep.
And I guess you hold them in a safe space, and, you know, I mean, I do that when I'm on the phones, and to me, I think that vulnerability is a real strength. So what is it that's so scary about vulnerability for you?
I just want to open up, let everybody know that I'm weak.
Yeah, so when someone...
Men have got to be strong. That's the way we're kind of programmed. You know, you've got to be tough. You've got to be strong. You've got to do all these things, and it's not easy to open up and show weakness, because you've had 28 years in the military where you're not supposed to do all that. Yeah,
so you're saying it's the way you've been programmed, yet when you come into contact with someone who shows vulnerability, I'm sure you don't think that they're weak.
I put my arms around him or her.
Pardon?
And I put my arms around him or her, and you listen to all these mental health first aid courses you do, you know. You sit and listen to them all, and you know that it's not being weak by showing vulnerability and expressing their feelings and things like that. And I don't see anyone being less a person for doing that, but I have difficulty doing it myself.
Yeah, you personally don't feel comfortable then being that person?
Even with these boys, I still don't say things. And I know Mick does them, I know Pedro does them. We're careful what we say. Turn it off, man. Just turn it off. We're just careful what we say, even in front of each other.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
So you feel like there's a possibility you might be judged as being weak?
Yeah. But I don't know, I don't know if it's just the male psychic or not, but it's just the way we are. And you've got to go and earn money, you've got to go out and keep the family going. You've got to pretend to be strong male and for the family, and strong for your sons and your daughters and things like that.
Is that a burden? Like, do you find that to be a heavy burden to carry?
No. I find
it's the man's role.
That's what I find it in almost 55 years.
Yeah. Hearing things that we haven't
There's lots of things I would never say to my wife about things.
Yeah.
But even prior to that, very rarely spoke about Vietnam, very rarely spoke about much at all on that side of things. Yeah. Very rarely. Yep.
Well, then I think Jared called it right, because he did instruct me not to go too deep with you.
Yeah.
Whereas it's really interesting, George, and I don't know if the boys revealed this to you yesterday, and I can just tell you from our point of view, but when Pedro came out, I was looking for, I said to Sam, do we have any tissues? Because it's possible we might need them, and I was thinking that I might need them, but not necessarily the men, but and she said, I'll go get some, just do Pedro's first, and then and I can get them while you're doing Pedro, because we didn't think he won't be the guy who needed them. Within 30 seconds, or maybe it was 20 seconds, he got choked up. Just talking about his mum. Did he mention that to you?
No. But when I was talking to Pedro last night. I mean, there's things that I cry about now that I never used to because I get older. It all happened quite a few years ago when I had a young corporal who was living with a nice young girl. And I said, in those days, they were just allowing men, soldiers, to cohabitate without being married, right? And they said, okay, if you prove that you lived with this woman for 12 months, blah, 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 we'll let you apply for Army married quarters, because normally there's only available to soldiers who are married. So anyhow, this Corporal McGuinness, a really lovely young man, and he said, no, we don't need to get married, you know, we're going to be partners for life, rah, 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 rah. So anyhow, he decided that he would get married, and it was a country wedding, at Wagga or something, or Dubbo or wherever we were. And I get all the way out there, and we go to the wedding, and he's saying his vows, and I'm starting to cry in the church. Thinking, what am I crying about? So getting watery eyes. Anyhow, I started getting a bit soft, if you know what I mean, or getting perhaps understanding my emotions. So then when he came to me afterwards, and he said, you know, George, he said, well, boss, he said, you know, all these years you've been telling me what the difference is between being married and just being in a partnership. Here I had to stand in front of God and my family and say those vows. Now I know what it means to be married. And I started crying again. I said, why? Why am I crying? Yeah. It's funny, and even now, talking to Pedro last night, you know, we got talking about Jared, you know, and that upset me a bit, and then you choked back a bit, and then talking about something else. So, you know, you kind of hold back the emotion because you don't want to burst out crying.
Yeah, I guess there's two parts to it. It's not just being vulnerable, it's holding your stuff together, you know, not having that meltdown. But
you don't want to unravel.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And it's just not me. I think a lot of guys are the same.
And that's okay, George. We like you just the way you are.
Well, that's good. And of course, I
ain't changing.
I tend to use humour, I suppose, to cover over what my real emotions are. That's why I tend to play the fool a lot, I'm guessing.
That's quite true.
Yeah. So to me, when you talk about Vietnam, I come back with those stories about the goat and the monkey and other things that I remember being good things, I suppose, and funny things. Not so much trying to relive going into contacts and doing things.
I think what's really interesting to me, George, is that, you know, you went straight back, or you just stayed in the army, and yet here you are now, decades later, you've started this wellbeing centre for veterans, and I mean, you didn't. Well, I guess you experienced the what happened with transition and how sort of you were left on your own, but you were still within the arms of the army. So what was it that compelled you to do this?
Well, it wasn't, I didn't have anything to do with the RSL. So again, as I said to you in those interviews, you live in this little community called the military. And you live in your married quarters, and you live in that area, and even though you're walking around in Civil Street, you're kind of isolated, and you stay with the group that you're with. Your kids might go to sport, and when you go to sport, you'll probably find that most of the other parents are all military anyhow, or some civilians, so you don't tend to mix a real lot. When we went to Canungra, we tried to get involved with the local community, which we did, and I told the boys a story about Mrs. Canungra and everything else, and that was all fun. And we got involved in the community, which is still military the whole time. And then when I got out of the army, prior to getting out of the army, I kicked off my contract catering business, so I knew I had to get myself lined up to get out, because the army wasn't going to do anything for me. The army would offer a resettlement seminar, but I didn't think I needed to go to it. Not like the big ones they do today, but this was just you could go away and learn how to do your finances and blah, 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 and write a resume and do things. And they weren't forced on you, they were just optional should you want to go and do it. Well, I had too much pride, and I said, no, I don't need that, I know what I want to do. So even in the army, I was running the business as well. So when it came time, I tendered for a large contract and got a very large contract. So I went and saw my CEO and I said, look, you know, I'm going to resign my commission. And in those days you couldn't leave the regular army and resign your commission. If you're naughty, they did, but for me, I had to transfer to the Army Reserve and spend time in the Army Reserve to transfer my commission so I could then resign from the Army Reserve later. And I thought that'd be a good crutch to hold me through in case something goes wrong. I had a very, very understanding commanding officer. He said, George, go away, we'll cover you for 3 months. Go and work the contract for 3 months, see how you feel, report in every fortnight, check in, come in your uniform, say hello, have a cup of coffee, go up the mess, just be here for a day every so often, and I'll mark you present every day. I'll cover you for 3 months.
What a top bloke.
That's what I thought. So after the 3 months, I came back and said, look, I said, the contract's really going well. I want to take the opportunity because I was about to be posted down to ADFA, where Peter Rosemond was, as the major in charge of all the catering for the whole academy. And then my next posting after that was going to be OC at the catering school. So I said to Sue, well, you know, I want to take the opportunity of doing this contract catering business. I thought I knew everything about it. I went in with about $20,000 in my pocket and went for a couple of years. I managed to not do a very good job of it all because I really didn't know how to run a business. However, one thing led to another, and through rugby as well, I was involved with rugby. So through rugby and the army, I tended to get other contracts, mainly rugby clubs and things. And that went reasonably well until one day again...
And you're talking about catering contracts, right?
Yeah, running big clubs and things, right?
Yes.
So contract caterer. So, you know, hiring staff and doing things. I had 4 or 5 large clubs at one stage, and at the end of the day, I'd put my hand in my pocket and pull out nothing because I didn't think I was running my business so well, and of course the margins are very tight in food. You think just because you're making $1 million that you're going to be rich and famous. Well, you're not. As my accountant used to say, it's easy to make $1 million, it's a lot harder to keep it. So by the time you pay all your bills and do all your things, and I had to have the big Range Rover, and I had to have the 5-bedroom house and the swimming pool and everything else. So at the end of the day, you're keeping all these families alive and paying all their wages and insurances and everything, which is good. You've got nothing left. So I got a phone call again through one of my rugby mates. Would you come down to the DY RSL club, speak to the CEO? They have contract caterers, they want to get rid of them, and can you get in-house catering back again? I said, clubs have a bad way of doing this. They'll turn over contract caterers regularly until they get what they want, or they'll have contract caterers and they have their own caterers and they go back to contract caterers. It's rather a vicious circle. So anyhow, I said, well, I'll come down. I spoke to the CEO, and he said, oh, look, you know, blah, 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 blah. I'll pay you like $100,000 a year and give you a car if you'll take over and sort out the catering. At that stage, I thought, this is great. Someone's actually going to pay me some money instead of me not having any money in my pocket. So I sold off my contracts and let the others go void and went to work. And I thought, this is lovely. I'm actually getting the pay. I got a couple of days off. I didn't have to sit in the office with Sue on a Sunday trying to pay all the bills and do everything. And that led to an involvement with RSL Life Care. It's all around Narrabeen area, that's where we were, and the sub-branch there at DY. So that went on for a while, and I thought, oh, you know, I don't know. Then I saw a job advertised at RSL Life Care for a catering manager there, and I paid a bit more money. And I thought that would be a bit, I'm sick and tired of club life, you know, poker machines and everything else. So I went up to RSL Life Care and spoke to the CEO, and he said, same thing. They were buying all their food in from a big company called, it doesn't really matter what it was called, but they were buying all their food in pretty well all prepared. We had to microwave it all and just reheat it. That was basically it. We want to go back to doing all our own cooking. Now, I used to do this in the army, set up officers' messes and sergeants' messes and catering areas. So I said, would you come on board? We'll pay you a shitload of money, sack all the contract caterers, get rid of all the other stuff, and cook all fresh. We want all fresh. So I said, fine. And they gave me a big flash car, and they said, matter of fact, you're doing such a good job. And we were feeding, 500 people, 3 meals a day, 1,500 meals times 7, about 10, 11,000 meals a week.
Wow.
And then I did that for about a year or so and built it all up. And they said, well, we're going to make you a general manager and we want you to do the care facilities as well. I said, care? So they had 500 beds in hostels, and then we had about 1,800 people living in independent living.
Who's here? Hey, George.
Ralph, how are you?
Mate, it's good to see you.
You too, mate. Well done. Thank you.
Well,
I'd like to introduce you to the lads I brought up here.
Oh, okay. Righto.
When they get organised, and their wives.
Wives.
But as
Hello,
you can
Ralph.
see,
Oh, hi.
Sue Ellen,
Good.
Ralph, we
Nice
have
to
met
meet you,
before.
Sue Ellen. Yeah.
And
Very
you can
nice.
see. So here we have Pedro Rosemond,
Okay.
Ralph, Crystal, and his
Pedro,
darling
how's it
wife,
going, mate?
darling wife Vicky.
How are you?
Hello. Hello.
Hello, boys.
This is Archie and Ike. Yeah.
Back out of
This
the
the young
way.
fella's
There you
Gary Williamson.
Yeah. Really glad to. Yeah. Really glad
And
to
the
meet
next
you.
bloke is Mick Payne,
Hey, Mick.
and his darling wife Judy.
Hey,
Hi,
Judy.
Ralph.
Hi,
Now-
Judy.
Just to let you know how this works,
Yeah.
Pedro was a crew commander in Vietnam, but not in our tank, but in our tank troop.
Right.
So we brought him along because he has a great memory,
Okay.
and he can talk a lot. I wasn't going to say that.
Okay.
Mick was a gunner sig. He was the actual gunner on our tank in Vietnam.
Yeah, I can see how you fitted in there.
Yeah, well, he's a bit thinner than that.
Yeah.
He was a tiny little fella.
Yeah.
Gary was the loader operator, and I was the driver. Our crew commander, a gentleman called Bill Heiss, is in Western Australia, and he's not in very good condition, so he couldn't make it over here to see and join us today. So
I'm pretty overwhelmed by just, coming here. It's a big deal.
well, it is. We haven't been together since Vietnam, and that's almost 53 years, 54 years since we actually all served together. We've seen ourselves individually over that time, but never as a group.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, since we've been here, the bottle shops ran out of wine.
Oh,
So this is our first time we've actually all been together. And you can see with our shirts on, this celebrates our tank that we drove in Vietnam, 169043,
Yeah.
which we've
Good.
been trying to track down for ages.
Well, righto.
Mick
Okay.
found it at Port Macquarie, but we're not sure what's happened to it since then. So some little birdie told me there's one at Oberon, so we went to Oberon, but it wasn't
Oh,
our
yeah, I know the
map.
gentleman there. He's pretty
map.
good, yeah.
That wasn't our tank.
Yeah.
It was a tank from Hong Kong, I think. It was over there and during the years when the British ran Hong Kong. So here we are.
Well, there's no guarantees, but we might go for a drive.
That might be nice.
Yeah, and see if you can, have a bit of a look about the farm, and
We'd love to do that.
I think the boys lit a fire for you, so
So these two little fellas look like Indiana Jones A and B.
yeah. They play around the bush a bit. I hope you've got plenty of good stories to share with them there.
We have.
Yeah.
We have. How about we get in our cars and then we'll meet you at the top paddock.
Yeah, right.
We'll
Yeah,
have
you
a-
go there and
We'll have a cup of tea and
yeah. I'll go missing for a little bit, but I'll see you shortly.
okay. Well done. Thank you.
And it's really glad to have you. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thanks. G'day, George.
Ralph, how are you?
I bet this is a tank you're glad to see.
Wow, lads,
Surprise.
would you believe this? Tank 169043, look what we've got.
There's the
Ralph,
number.
Ralph, this is the tank that we're all lived in Vietnam for 12 months.
Wow.
Where in the heck did you find this?
Well, it's funny how things just happen or meant to happen. When my father passed away, he was on the Matildas, and we went in search of a Matilda and couldn't find one. And we had a friend, Mr. Peter Jarrett. He sort of gave us a bit of a heads up on Centurion tanks because he had one and he was on them, and she turned up at Port Macquarie.
Wow.
It was perfect. I was turning 43 at the time. It was doing my own birthday present. I hope you like her.
Incredible. Well, we're part of the crew.
Yeah.
We don't have all our crew here because our troop sergeant is in West Australia and he's not in good shape. But I was able to manage to rattle a couple of guys up.
Yeah.
This is Mick Payne. I think you had a meeting with him years ago.
Yeah, I did actually remember
when I was
coming.
at Port Macquarie.
I was glad to see Mick.
Well, Mick
It was a bit rushed, sorry. We were a bit excited.
Mick was the gunner at the time.
Yeah.
This young fella here with the dark hair, he was actually Gary Williamson. Gary
Good
was
to meet
the
you, Gary.
was the loader. So I dragged along a gentleman called Peter Rosemond, who was one of our corporal crew commanders
How you do,
in
Peter?
Vietnam.
Nice to meet you. Yeah.
So I wanted Peter to come along because I knew there was a surprise somewhere, but I couldn't work out what this surprise was.
Yeah.
And you were leading me down the garden path and thinking,
Well,
what's going on here?
Yeah, it's just a Centurion.
just a Centurion, but this is the Centurion that we drove.
Yeah, I'm very glad you've come to us. Yeah.
Well, we're excited. Now, running through this, Gary was a national serviceman and did 2 years.
Right, okay.
Mick ended up a warrant officer and 20 odd years.
Yep. Well, righto. Well,
and Pedro ended up doing 30 odd years, 35, and ended up becoming OSM of the Army.
Oh, okay.
So I actually only did about 5 or 6 years in Armoured Corps, but I transferred over to Catering Corps so I found I could kill more people with my food than I could driving one of these things.
Not a bad tactic. Yeah.
So I ended up doing about 28 years.
Yeah.
So now we haven't kind of got together. This is the first time all of us have been together in 54 odd years.
bollards are were up the other way.
Yeah, we turn the bollards up the other way. So
Yeah.
if it's upside down, it still goes on and locks on.
Well, on, yeah, it still works. Yeah, I can imagine.
The other thing we did, you remember this one, George? We welded a cut-up star picket up there and on the front mudguard.
Yeah.
And the idea was that when you got out of the mud, you climbed up there and cleaned your boots before you go. You're forever draining out water.
Yeah, so the plugs, we got the plugs out. You'd pull the plugs and let water drop through her.
Well, you had to get underneath to pull the plugs.
Yeah.
And if it was in the wet season, getting underneath to pull the plugs was a shocker.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go running around without the plugs in.
Yeah.
Because that would.
If you hit a.
Well, we actually lost a guy over there because what would happen in the driver's compartment, if you go underneath, you put the plug in this way, right? So it's got a plate and the nut underneath it.
Yeah.
So if you have a hit of mine, it can't go up.
Yeah.
But what a lot of them were doing was taking that plug out and screwing it in this way. And then this guy hit a mine, and the result was it went straight through.
The plug come up.
Yeah. So that was one of the things.
That was Jimmy Kerr, wasn't it?
No, Mick
Hannaford, yeah. And then I remember doing training down in Armoured Centre and then up to the regiment, and I was not a very good mechanical guy, right? I had very low mechanical aptitude.
Yeah.
So I kept losing my spanners down into the engine bay, right?
Yeah, I think it was a few
So then I kept going up to the Q store and you had to fill in a loss and damage report, and I kept having to fill these in almost every week, and the bloke said, "Good, come down to your pay, right?"
Yeah.
So he said, "Look, what are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know." And I went back and I had a look at it, and I opened up the engine decks and I realised there's all these trim vanes. And this is a true story. I got all my spanners with strings and tied them to the trim vane, so if I dropped them I could pull them back out again.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd open up and you have all these strings hanging down with all these spanners on.
Oh, ready to go?
No, only when I'm working on it. Then Then I take them away when I close it down.
Close it down, yeah.
But I got sick and tired of losing all my pay because I kept dropping everything down there.
Oh, okay,
And even when I went underneath to try and find them, I still couldn't get them all out.
Yeah. Oh, it's a long way. When you go in the top, it's a long way to the bottom.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And changing spark plugs used to be a pain in the butt. One good thing about it is that the baddies didn't have tanks as well, so that was quite good.
Yeah.
But we had issues probably with mines and or RPGs. But generally, I would rather be in this than walking around as an infantry bloke.
Yeah.
Because I got all the comforts of home. We can have a hot shower, we could have dinner, and you could keep warm and you could keep cold, but it was quite good.
The hot shower come about because the jerry cans were on the transmission decks.
Oh, so they warmed up through the day.
Always heated up through the day.
You're operating all day and the water's nice.
Nice.
20 litres for 4 blokes to have a shower.
Quite a luxury.
Yeah.
Did you when you were out in the field and on patrol, did you associate much with the infantry? Would they come and join you at night or day, or you would sort of?
Well, it depends on the operation that we're on. So sometimes we'd be by ourselves, just the 4 tanks and a recovery vehicle. Other times you might be with some cavalry as well. Other times you would have infantry with you.
Yeah.
But generally we would stop over night time for a night harbour, as they call it, and they would sleep between the tanks. So it depends on the situation at the time, but you'd have one tank here, one there, one there, one here, for example, and the infantry between you. So we would cook and do our meals, and I'd offer food to these guys or have a hot shower, and they go, "No, we live on what water we have and what food we have. You guys are just a bunch of wankers, really, because you've got hot water, but you wank your tankies, you know." And
or your driver would be saying, the infantry guy sorting out his little butchie spot for the night, and the driver would stand there and say, "Excuse me, mate, can you move over a bit?" And the infantry goes, "Why?" "Well, that's where we have a shower." And of course there'd be a bit of banter and swearing going backwards and forwards and all of that. But truthfully, we had water and ammunition that we could give in an instant to the infantry if they needed it.
So you were there for support.
So and it was that become a team. But when there's nothing happening, tankies and infantry or engineers. Different hat badges, different cultures.
Didn't socialise.
A little bit of rivalry.
Of course, it's all banter and family.
Well,
I'll tell you. Sorry.
One position was one of the grunts we were working with. They said, where are your shell scrapes? They dig a shell scrape in there for their, anything happens, they can jump in it.
Oh, yeah.
Why haven't you blokes got shell scrapes? We aren't going to be in there when the shit hits the fan, we're going to be in there.
Okay, you recall when we were crewing a tank that crew commander would be observing, looking for targets, gunners observing, looking for targets, operators doing his business with radios and machine guns, and he might be an air observer. So crew commander sees a target, reports a contact back on the radio, and seeks permission to engage. It's been checked, it's not one of our vehicles in the vicinity of the contact, so clearance to fire is given. Action! So he goes through a check. Mick's got his left hand on the
Ready!
Main armoured or machine gun selector, right hand, all of the instruments are turned on. Gary's checked the breech. All clear. All's clear. Machine guns are cocked, ready to go. And I've decided it's 1,200 metres. I'm going to engage this armoured vehicle with a Sabo, that is an armour-piercing, discarding Sabo round, which penetrates armour. So I give the fire order. Sabo, 1-200, armoured vehicle in open.
1-200, on!
Loaded. Fire.
Firing now! Top edge!
Loaded. Yep. Go through the load thing. So second round's in. Second round in. Loaded. Picked up another round. Took the safety. Loaded. Fire.
Firing now! Target!
Stop target destroyed. I should have said stop target petrified.
Yeah.
But that's.
Thanks,
how do you feel about that? All of memories come rushing back. Yeah.
Clunk, shut, get it put in there quickly, don't get your fingers taken off.
Yeah. All the stuff in the gunner seat. It's not a lot of room. I'm surprised, personally, that all of this could happen in this tight space, and we actually felt like it was like we had plenty of room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, rough country, I mean, when we were doing rough and bumpy as a gunner, I could brace myself in nice and tightly, so
yeah,
had a nice brow pad to rest your head on if you needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And you didn't want the crew commander's knees in the middle of your kidneys and back.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of a crew commander, do your job, but take care that you're not assaulting the gunner's back every time you get up and down. Yeah. But all the instruments, for me, all sort of fall back into, yeah, I understand what that is, and this is a clutch and a brake, and that's a sight, and there's a thing here to wind, and yeah, there are binoculars that are like a periscope.
Do a long range
so much stuff that it all ties together. For the vintage of the tank, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah. Mick, this is it. This is the end of it all. Really, we should thank DVA and the Study in the Service program for providing the funding and agreeing for us to recognise the tank crews in Vietnam and what they all went through. It also, I guess what's more important is to thank Matt initially for the use of his farm and his Centurion, and of course Ralph that had our tank, and both farmers were very keen to help us and bent over backwards, emotional thing to write. And of course a very, very special thank you to Tubby Brooker and the One Armoured Association for providing a lot of this film and film clips and stills. Without that we couldn't do half the things we're doing, so it's been great, it really has been. And I'd like to thank J.HUNTER Media and all the other people that were involved in getting this together. It's been a journey for us all, and I just hope that it goes down in history, people will be able to refer to it regularly.
Yeah, well, when I first got the call off you, I thought, what trouble are you going to get me to now, Ollie?
Yeah.
But I'm absolutely blown away for the whole experience, and it was very cathartic and enjoyable, just to get us all back together again on our old dearly beloved vehicle.
Well, I had some concerns because I wasn't sure how we would all react individually, you know, whether it would affect your PTSD or whether Gary would have issues, or even with myself. I was a bit hesitant about getting it all up and running, but I'm glad I did it by all means, and I've been able to, I guess, put a few demons behind, which I think's been great.
Yeah, it certainly was an opportunity to get rid of some of those devils or demons or whatever was hanging in there. I wouldn't have missed it for quids.
No, it's been fabulous. It really has.
Yep.
Well, guys, would you believe 54 years and here we are again together with our famous crew commander and the boys from the turret. It's taken us all this time, and bingo, we come to a place called Molong and we find our tank, the tank we served in Vietnam, still running. We've had a bit of a game with it, we've had a play with it. It's just been fabulous time. How have you felt about it?
I'm 19.
You're 19 again.
I'm back.
Gary?
Aged. Just like old times.
You know what?
Never been away.
The only thing is, it's not quite as agile as it used to be. And I was a bit apprehensive about having to drive. That's why I didn't want to drive at Matt's. But once I got in there and the engine started, I've got to say, I was enjoying myself. And I remember all the dirt and crap that used to go all over me. But it's been fabulous to meet you all again, because we haven't all been together all these years. Pedro?
Look, I echo your sentiment totally. We've got a beer.
Yep.
The beer we used to drink if we
VB.
could get it in Vietnam. And I'd like to propose a toast to absent and fallen friends, and have a razor glass for our reunion.
Well, let's do that. And let's also remember our SSM Johnny Horton while we do it. So here's to fallen friends, Johnny and all the other guys. Yep. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's get it down.
Good to be together.
Ah, VB. Well done.
You're a shit driver.
Oh no, thank you. You weren't very much of a gunner either, but still.
We should have looked a typical engine driver.
Should have just left the barrel over the top of you so you couldn't get out of your hole.
Give me a break, come on.
Yeah,
if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be here today. Look, come on, let's face it. I got you there, got you around where you had to go, made your beds.
Yeah.
And every night I had to fluff your pillows for you to put you on the stretchers. Come on.
Yeah.
And somebody had to cook.
Somebody had to cook as well.
Yeah. Make the brews.
Make the brews.
You had a hard life.
I had a hard life. But anyhow, here's to our mates, those that aren't with us. Cheers.
Someone to save me, no, and don't come running to blame me. From miles away I can tell that something's off. The way you look and how you pause when you talk, I think I said enough. You said you love for me something brand new. You said second. Yeah, you're being over your head, babe. 'Cause there is no